Last week, I became unexpectedly angry. A public remark about Michelle Obama stirred something so deeply within me that I couldn't simply dismiss it. The comment felt disrespectful, degrading, and dismissive. But what surprised me was not the remark itself. What surprised me was the intensity of my reaction. I could feel anger rising, not irritation, anger. And as I sat quietly with it, a question emerged. Not what do I think about the comment, not who was right, nor who was wrong. The question was, why does this affect me so deeply? That question changed everything because it shifted my attention away from the event and towards the belief the event was revealing. I had no idea that question would lead me back more than 50 years and uncover a belief I didn't even know I was carrying. The question led me somewhere I did not expect. It led me back to a department store. I was 18 years young, standing at a counter in the head company, waiting to be helped. And as I stood there, a white family approached. The employee behind the counter completely ignored me and immediately began assisting them. I still remember how I felt: humiliated, dismissed, invisible, and if honest, angry. What I didn't realize at the time was that the experience was far from over. More than 50 years later, it was still speaking. What I thought was a reaction to a current event turned out to be the doorway to a wound I had been carrying for decades. Then I realized for years I believed I was carrying anger about what happened that day. What I eventually discovered was that I was carrying something else. I was carrying a belief. Without realizing it, I had accepted a conclusion about myself. The conclusion was not merely that I had been ignored. The conclusion was, I do not matter. That realization stopped me in my tracks. And as I looked back over my life, I began to see its influence everywhere. Much of my life had been devoted to serving, helping, supporting, teaching, encouraging, and caring for others. I had even become the caretaker for 2 family members. Yet beneath much of that activity lay a subtle, largely unconscious effort to prove something. I spent years trying to prove my worth because I had unconsciously accepted the belief that I did not matter. Looking back, I can see that I had established a series of conditions for my own value. To feel valuable, I needed to feel needed. To feel important, I had to feel useful. To feel worthy, I had to be recognized. What I did not yet understand was that I had unknowingly made my worth dependent on circumstances and other people's responses. Then another question arose. What was true about me that day that no act of prejudice or racism could ever take away? The answer came immediately. I still am the reflection of God. I still possess dignity and self-respect. And I'm still the loved idea of love. In that moment, I realized something that changed everything. Even though I felt the world had failed to recognize my worth, the world never possessed the authority to define it. I would like to say that again. Although I felt the world failed to recognize my worth, the world never possessed the authority to define it. Suddenly, I could see something that had been hidden for decades. The clerk's failure to see me did not diminish me. The prejudice did not destroy me, and the humiliation never eliminated me. What had wounded me most was not the event itself. It was the meaning I had attached to it. I had unknowingly accepted the lie that being unseen meant I was less than. Once I excavated that lie, something deeper became visible. This was not only about me. Beliefs about human worth do not remain isolated. They shape the way we see ourselves, the way we treat others, and the world we helped create. When we accept the belief that people do not matter, consequences follow. What I eventually discovered was that this belief concealed an even deeper lie. If I did not matter, perhaps I was unloved. And if I was unloved, perhaps I was separate from my source, from the very presence that gives me life, identity, and being. Yet none of this was true. The belief that I did not matter had merely obscured the conscious recognition of what had always been true. I am the loved idea of love. My Father and I are one. And in that moment, another realization emerged. My worth was never conditional. It was not dependent upon what I did. It was not dependent upon how others responded to me. It was not dependent upon whether I was recognized, appreciated, or even seen. My worth had never been bestowed by the world. Therefore, it could never be taken away by the world. As I reflected on this, I thought about a boomerang. A boomerang returns to the hand that throws it. The same is true of the beliefs we hold about human worth. Whether we affirm dignity or deny it, the consequences do not stop with the other person. They eventually return. This law applies equally to everyone. For much of my life, I focused on what had happened to me. What I now understand is that the deeper work was uncovering what I had been tempted to believe because of it. The day I excavated the lie beneath the belief that I did not matter was not merely the day I discovered that I mattered. It was the day I discovered that nothing could separate me from the source of my being. Today, I understand something the 18-year-old version of me could not yet see. I mattered before they saw me. I mattered while they overlooked me, and I matter now. Not because the world finally recognized my value, but because my identity was never created by the world. It was and always has been established in oneness. And if you have ever felt invisible, dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, or disrespected, perhaps this is true for you as well. Your worth was never created by another person's recognition or lack of it, and it cannot be diminished by another person's failure to see you. The lie was that being unseen meant you did not matter. The truth is that you do matter because you have always been loved and never for a moment separated from the source of your being. So join me in a conscious recognition of my Father and I are one. And in this conscious recognition, we stand, and so we rest. Bye for now.